Question 1. A nurse manager in the labor and delivery, L&D, department is setting up a new enclosed room to store sterile surgical trays. Because this room functions as a satellite storage area, which of the following environmental protocols must the manager strictly implement? A. Maintain temperature and humidity based on the L&D department's comfort guidelines. B. Clean the shelving units only when visible dust is present. C. Enforce the exact same environmental and handling standards as the main sterile processing, SP, storage room. D. Utilize open wire shelving without bottom solid shelf liners to maximize airflow. Correct answer C. Knowledge point explanation. Core rationale. Any satellite storage area located outside the main processing department is legally and functionally an extension of the primary sterile storage room. Therefore, it must strictly adhere to the exact same stringent environmental controls, such as temperature, humidity, positive air pressure, and stock rotation rules, to successfully guarantee that the sterility of the barrier packaging is maintained until the point of use. Trap analysis. Option A is extremely dangerous because clinical comfort guidelines often exceed the strict 75 degrees Fahrenheit limit required to prevent bacterial growth and seal degradation. Option B violates standard infection control practices, which require routine, scheduled cleaning regardless of visible soil to prevent microscopic dust accumulation. Option D fails to protect the bottom tier of items from floor contaminants. A solid bottom shelf is always mandatory. Concept extension, closed cabinets. In high-traffic satellite areas like operating room cores or busy clinics, closed cabinets are highly preferred over open shelving because they provide superior physical protection against accidental contact and airborne debris. Question 2. An endoscopy technician has just completed the high-level disinfection, HLD, cycle for a flexible colonoscope. Before placing the delicate instrument into the dedicated, ventilated storage cabinet, what is the absolute most critical physical condition the technician must ensure? A. The endoscope must be securely coiled inside a protective closed transport container. B. The endoscope must be completely dry, both internally and externally. C. The endoscope must be wrapped securely in a blue non-woven sterilization wrap. D. The endoscope must be sealed tightly inside a long plastic moisture-retaining bag. Correct answer B. Knowledge point explanation. Core rationale. The absolute most critical requirement for storing any high-level disinfected item is that it must be entirely free of moisture. Because HLD does not destroy all bacterial spores, any residual water left inside the lumens or on the exterior surfaces creates a perfect breeding ground for these surviving microorganisms to rapidly multiply into dangerous biofilms during storage. Trap analysis. Option A is incorrect because flexible endoscopes must be hung vertically, not coiled, to allow gravity to assist in drying and prevent moisture pooling. Option C incorrectly applies a terminal sterilization protocol, wrapping, to an item that has only undergone disinfection. Option D is a catastrophic error. A plastic bag traps moisture and instantly promotes massive bacterial proliferation, completely ruining the disinfection process. Concept extension, vertical hanging. Endoscopes must always be stored vertically in specialized drying cabinets equipped with high-efficiency particulate air, HEPA, filters to ensure continuous drying and protection from environmental contamination. Question 3. When sterile packages are actively arranged and continuously maintained on the storage shelves to ensure proper stock rotation, which of the following inventory management principles must be strictly enforced to prevent older items from expiring? A. Last in, first out, LIFO. B. First in, first out, FIFO. C. First in, last out, FILO. D. Last in, last out, LILO. Correct answer B. Knowledge point explanation. Core rationale. The first in, first out, FIFO protocol is the mandatory standard for medical inventory control. It dictates that items with the oldest processing or commercial sterilization dates, first in, must be physically positioned at the very front of the shelf so they are utilized before the newer, recently processed inventory, first out, thereby systematically preventing supply expiration and material degradation. Trap analysis. Option A is an accounting methodology that, if applied to medical supplies, would disastrously cause the oldest inventory at the back of the shelf to permanently expire and become unsafe. Option C and Option D are fabricated distractors that completely disrupt the logical flow of stock rotation, leading to extreme waste and heightened patient risk from degraded sterile barriers. Concept extension, event-related sterility, ERS. Although FIFO manages the physical rotation of boxes, the actual sterility of properly handled in-house items is considered event-related, meaning they remain clinically safe indefinitely until a specific contaminating event, like a tear or moisture, occurs. Question 4. A sterile processing, SP, technician is monitoring a steam sterilization cycle. At what exact moment does the formal sterile storage process, which includes careful handling, environmental protection, and proper cooling protocols, officially begin for this specific load? A. The moment the wrapped items are actively received in the decontamination area. B. The moment the sterile items are completely cooled to room temperature. C. The moment the items are physically placed into the steam sterilizer chamber. D. The moment the sterilizer cycle is fully completed and the chamber door is opened. Correct answer D. Knowledge point explanation. Core rationale. The sterile storage phase formally initiates the exact second the sterilization cycle successfully concludes and the sterilizer door is opened to the environment. From this precise moment forward, the items are officially deemed sterile and must be meticulously protected by sterile storage rules, beginning with strict cooling protocols and avoiding any physical contact while hot to prevent condensation wicking. Trap analysis. Option A describes the beginning of the entire reprocessing cycle, cleaning and disinfection, not the storage phase. Option B is incorrect because the critical cooling phase is already a fundamental part of the sterile storage process, not the trigger that starts it. Option C identifies the active sterilization phase, during which the items are still considered unsterile. Concept extension, condensation wicking. If a technician touches or moves a package immediately after the door opens while it is still hot, the temperature difference between the hot tray and the cool ambient air immediately creates internal condensation, instantly contaminating the package. Question 5. To legally and scientifically prevent airborne contaminants from infiltrating the sterile storage room and destroying the integrity of the barrier packaging, the room's ventilation system must strictly provide which of the following specific environmental parameters? A. Negative airflow and at least 10 air exchanges per hour. B. Negative airflow and at least 4 air exchanges per hour. C. Positive airflow and at least 4 air exchanges per hour. D. Positive airflow and at least 10 air exchanges per hour. Correct answer C. Knowledge point explanation. Core rationale. To aggressively safeguard sterilized instruments, the sterile storage room must be engineered to maintain a positive air pressure relative to surrounding areas, coupled with a minimum requirement of 4 air exchanges per hour. Positive pressure ensures that when doors open, the clean air pushes outward, creating an invisible shield that violently repels unfiltered air and microbes from entering the space. Trap analysis. Option A and Option B incorrectly apply negative airflow, which is a design specifically mandated for biohazardous areas like the decontamination room to actively suck in and trap contaminated air. Option D proposes an excessively high air exchange rate, 10 per hour, that is specifically required for the prep and pack area or decontamination room, not the strictly regulated minimum for static sterile storage. Concept extension, ANSI/ASHRAE/ASH Standard 170. This exact combination of positive airflow and specific hourly air exchanges is legally mandated by this authoritative engineering standard to assure environmental stability in healthcare facilities. Question 6. An operating room, or nurse requests a flexible endoscope that was just processed using liquid chemical sterilization, LCS. How long can the sterile processing technician safely store this critical device on the shelf before it is deemed unsterile? A. 60 minutes in a temperature-controlled environment. B. 4 hours if properly covered with a sterile drape. C. Zero storage time. They must be transported and used immediately. D. 1 full day inside a dedicated vertical drying cabinet. Correct answer C. Knowledge point explanation. Core rationale: items processed via liquid chemical sterilization, LCS, such as those using peracetic acid systems, are entirely unwrapped during the cycle and emerge wet. Because they lack a validated sterile barrier packaging to protect them from environmental fallout, they possess absolutely zero shelf life and must be delivered to the patient immediately for just-in-time use. Trap analysis: option A is wrong because LCS items cannot be stored at all. 60 minutes is instead the minimum typical cooling time for hot steam sterilized trays. Option B is wrong because a drape does not seal out bacteria from a wet lumen. A 4-hour limit is an outdated concept once associated with immediate use steam sterilization, IUSS, transport, not LCS. Option D is wrong because drying cabinets are strictly utilized for storing high-level disinfected, HLD, scopes, not items intended to be chemically sterilized for immediate critical use. Concept extension: just-in-time processing. This is a critical operational concept where sterilization occurs immediately before the surgical procedure begins, completely bypassing the sterile storage phase due to the lack of terminal barrier packaging. Question 7. The Sterile Processing Department, SPD, is allocating a budget to completely upgrade its storage infrastructure. To provide the absolute maximum physical protection against airborne dust, accidental human contact, and environmental moisture, which specific storage system must the manager select? A. Open wire mesh shelving racks. B. Semi-closed modular supply bins. C. Fully closed solid cabinets with doors. D. Track-mounted mobile carriages. Correct answer C. Knowledge point explanation. Core rationale: fully closed cabinets act as a robust secondary physical barrier over the sterile packaging. By enclosing the trays completely behind solid doors, they offer the highest level of defense against dust settling, lint accumulation, and contamination caused by personnel brushing against the items in high-traffic storage banks. Trap analysis: option A is wrong because open racks leave items exposed to the room's air currents on all 4 sides. They are only correct when used inside strictly controlled, isolated sterile rooms. Option B is wrong because the open front still allows dust penetration. Semi-closed bins are correct for organizing fast-moving unsterile disposable supplies in the prep area. Option D describes a space-saving mechanical mobility feature, not an infection control barrier. Tracked systems are correct when maximizing floor space is the primary goal, but they still utilize open or closed shelving within the carriage. Concept extension: high-traffic satellite storage. In areas like the operating room core where many unsterile personnel constantly walk by, the facility policy heavily mandates the use of closed cabinets to prevent accidental cross-contamination. Question 8. What is the primary infection control risk when large wrapped orthopedic trays are placed in a manner that allows them to physically overhang the edge of the storage shelves? A. They permanently warp the metal shelf structure under their heavy weight. B. They severely restrict the required positive airflow from circulating through the room. C. They are extremely vulnerable to contamination from falling dust and physical tearing from aisle traffic. D. They rapidly absorb ambient humidity from the adjacent uncontrolled corridors. Correct answer C. Knowledge point explanation. Core rationale: any portion of a sterile package that physically protrudes past the edge of the storage shelf is immediately subjected to severe hazards. The overhanging section collects falling debris from above and acts as a bumper, risking catastrophic tears, crushing, and abrasive damage every time a technician or transport cart passes through the tight aisle. Trap analysis: option A is wrong because shelving is engineered to hold hundreds of pounds. Structural warping happens when weight limits are massively exceeded, not simply due to an overhang. Option B is wrong because a slight tray overhang does not possess the volume to stop a commercial HVAC system. Airflow restriction occurs if items are stacked illegally close, within 18 inches, to the ceiling diffusers. Option D is wrong because humidity affects the entire storage room dynamically, not just the overhanging edge. Humidity absorption becomes an issue if the room's HVAC system fails overall. Concept extension, rigid container overhang rule. Unlike soft blue wrap which tears easily, rigid sterilization containers provide a solid structural defense. However, even rigid containers are strictly prohibited from overhanging because they can be easily knocked off the shelf onto the floor. Question 9. Which of the following physical infrastructure designs leaves carefully sterilized barrier packaging the absolute most vulnerable to environmental debris, unpredictable air currents, and potential microbial contamination from all sides? A. Open wire shelving units. B. Closed stainless steel cabinets. C. Semi-closed modular plastic carts. D. Solid wall-mounted shelving systems. Correct answer A. Knowledge point explanation. Core rationale. Open wire shelving features a grid design that exposes the sterile packages to ambient air from the top, bottom, front, back, and sides. Because it lacks solid walls or doors, it offers the least amount of physical shielding, making strict adherence to daily room cleaning and environmental air filtration protocols absolutely mandatory to prevent contamination. Trap analysis. Option B is wrong because closed cabinets provide the ultimate defense against air currents. They are correct when the facility wants to completely isolate items from the room environment. Option C is wrong because a semi-closed unit protects the back and sides. It is correct for transporting clean items securely. Option D is wrong because a solid shelf blocks upward drafts and the wall blocks the rear. It is correct for sturdy, heavy instrument storage along the room's perimeter. Concept extension, shelf cleaning protocols. Because open wire racks accumulate dust rapidly on their grids, SPD policies dictate a rigorous schedule for damp dusting the shelves with a facility-approved germicide, starting from the top shelf and working down. Question 10. During a strict regulatory survey, an inspector measures the distance of the bottom rack in the sterile storage room. To strictly comply with the Association for the Advancement of Medical Instrumentation, AAMI, standards, what must be the physical condition and precise vertical clearance of this lowest shelf? A. Made of open wire mesh and positioned exactly 2 to 4 inches from the floor. B. Constructed as a barrier and positioned precisely 8 to 10 inches from the floor. C. Made of open wire mesh and positioned exactly 8 to 10 inches from the floor. D. Constructed as a solid barrier and positioned precisely 2 to 4 inches from the floor. Correct answer B. Knowledge point explanation. Core rationale. The gold standard for sterile storage infrastructure explicitly dictates that the very bottom shelf must be solid and must maintain a clearance of 8 to 10 inches above the floor. The 8 to 10 inches guarantee that environmental services personnel can easily mop the floor underneath without bumping the racks, while the solid material physically blocks any dirty mop water splashes from striking the sterile wrappers. Trap analysis. Option A is wrong because wire mesh fails to stop splashes, and 2 inches is too low to fit a mop under. It is correct only for industrial warehouse pallets, never surgical supplies. Option C is wrong because although the height is perfectly correct, the open wire mesh fundamentally fails to provide the required splash barrier. Option D is wrong because 2 to 4 inches completely obstructs proper daily floor cleaning, allowing massive amounts of dust to collect directly under the sterile supplies. Concept extension, damp mopping. Brooms or dry dusters are strictly banned in sterile storage because they aerosolize dust particles. Floors must exclusively be damp mopped with a germicidal solution to safely trap and remove contaminants. Question 11. A newly certified sterile processing (SP) technician is assigned to unload a steam sterilizer cart. Which of the following actions demonstrates strictly compliant handling of the sterile trays? A. Sliding the heavy trays across the metal shelf to quickly make room for more inventory. B. Transferring the trays to the storage rack while they are still warm to drastically reduce processing time. C. Lifting the trays completely off the cart and visually verifying the external chemical indicators, CIs, before shelf placement. D. Opening the rigid containers immediately to check the internal chemical indicators, CIs, before storage. Correct answer C. Knowledge point explanation. Core rationale. Proper handling demands that items are completely cooled to prevent condensation, visually inspected for intact external chemical indicators, CIs, as the first quality assurance step, and physically lifted rather than dragged to protect the barrier. Trap analysis. Option A involves dragging, which creates dangerous friction that can easily abrade or tear the non-woven wrapper. Option B violates the strict cooling rule. Moving warm trays creates rapid temperature changes that force internal condensation and subsequent wicking. Option D is a critical error because breaking the seal of a rigid container to check internal indicators in the storage room instantly contaminates the set. This step is exclusively performed at the point of use. Concept extension, point of use inspection. While external indicators are checked by the SP technician before storage, evaluating the internal indicator is strictly the responsibility of the scrub nurse or surgical technologist right before the surgery begins. Question 12. A supervisor observes a staff member stacking multiple heavy, wrapped orthopedic trays on a single shelf to maximize space. Why must this practice be immediately stopped? A. It physically blocks the facility's positive airflow ventilation system. B. It creates severe compression that can easily cause microscopic holes in the wrapping material. C. It rapidly degrades the chemical indicator tape on the exterior of the packages. D. It violates the mathematical formula of the first in, first out stock rotation protocol. Correct answer B. Knowledge point explanation. Core rationale. Stacking wrapped items places immense, concentrated weight on the bottom packages. This severe compression crushes the delicate fibers of the sterilization wrap, creating microtears or holes that instantly destroy the microbial barrier and contaminate the instruments inside. Trap analysis. Option A is incorrect because stacked trays on a shelf do not possess the architectural volume to block an entire room's HVAC system. Option C is scientifically false. Physical weight has absolutely no impact on the chemical stability of indicator ink. Option D is unrelated. While stacking makes physical rotation annoying, the primary critical reason it is banned is the direct destruction of sterility, not inventory mathematics. Concept extension, rigid container stacking. Unlike soft wraps, rigid sterilization containers are mechanically designed to be safely stacked, but they must strictly be stacked only with other compatible rigid containers, ensuring the locking mechanisms are properly aligned. Question 13. What is the strict professional protocol regarding the handling of corrugated cardboard shipping containers that arrive from external medical suppliers? A. They must be completely unpacked in a separate receiving area prior to bringing the clean inner items into the sterile storage room. B. They should be thoroughly wiped down with an approved germicidal solution before being placed on the sterile shelves. C. They are safely permitted in the sterile storage room as long as they are placed securely on the solid bottom shelf. D. They must be immediately transferred into the operating room core to significantly limit intermediate handling steps. Correct answer A. Knowledge point explanation. Core rationale. Corrugated cardboard shipping boxes are inherently dirty and highly porous, notorious for harboring dust, insects, and fungal spores accumulated during transit. They are strictly banned from clean areas and must undergo a breakout process, where supplies are removed from the dirty brown boxes in a dedicated receiving zone before entering the pristine sterile storage environment. Trap analysis. Option B is physically impossible. Cardboard is a porous material that absorbs liquid, meaning wiping it with a germicide will only turn it into a soggy, mold-promoting mess rather than disinfecting it. Option C violates basic infection control. Cardboard is completely banned from the sterile storage room regardless of which shelf it sits on. Option D would disastrously introduce warehouse contaminants directly into the highly restricted surgical core. Concept extension, breakout area. This specialized zone acts as an essential buffer between the uncontrolled external warehouse delivery dock and the highly regulated internal clean environments of the sterile processing department. Question 14. A hospital infection control committee is establishing a new protocol for the storage of flexible endoscopes following high-level disinfection, HLD. According to national guidelines, how is the maximum safe storage hang time for these devices officially determined? A. It is strictly mandated as a universal 14-day limit by all federal agencies. B. It is dictated strictly according to the individual healthcare facility's policy based on evidence and manufacturer instructions. C. It is automatically established as exactly 6 weeks when utilizing a standard open-air storage cabinet. D. It is defined as 0 hours because all disinfected items must be used immediately without storage. Correct answer B. Knowledge point explanation. Core rationale. Unlike the event-related sterility of surgical trays, there is no single, universally mandated national standard for the hang time, storage time, of high-level disinfected flexible endoscopes. Therefore, each individual facility is legally responsible for developing its own specific policy, heavily referencing the device's instructions for use, IFU, the drying cabinet's capabilities, and evidence-based guidelines from professional societies. Trap analysis. Option A and Option C propose arbitrary, fixed timeframes that are not universally recognized. Hang times vary wildly across different hospitals depending on their specialized drying technology. Option D confuses high-level disinfection with liquid chemical sterilization, LCS. LCS requires immediate use, zero storage, but HLD endoscopes can absolutely be stored safely in designated cabinets. Concept extension, SGNA guidelines. The Society of Gastroenterology Nurses and Associates, SGNA, provides heavily researched recommendations that hospitals utilize to build these internal policies regarding endoscope drying and storage times. Question 15. What is the primary infection control purpose of aggressively identifying and tagging flexible endoscopes as patient-ready immediately after they undergo high-level disinfection, HLD? A. To meticulously track the exact temperature and humidity of the internal drying cabinet. B. To strictly document the specific technician who performed the manual leak test phase. C. To clearly distinguish safely processed devices from contaminated, non-processed devices. D. To officially extend the event-related sterility expiration date indefinitely. Correct answer C. Knowledge point explanation. Core rationale. Flexible endoscopes look visually identical whether they are heavily contaminated with microscopic pathogens or completely clean and disinfected. Applying a clear, highly visible patient-ready tag is the critical safety mechanism that absolutely prevents a dirty scope from being accidentally selected and used on a patient, distinguishing its status flawlessly. Trap analysis. Option A and Option B describe functions belonging to complex computerized tracking software or departmental logs, not the immediate safety function of a physical status tag on the scope itself. Option D is medically inaccurate because HLD items are disinfected, not sterilized, and they do not fall under the indefinite rules of event-related sterility. They have strict hang times. Concept extension, status indicators. Using color-coded tags or clearly printed labels indicating clean or HLD provides an instant visual cue to the clinical staff, ensuring absolute confidence before intubating a patient.